Let's take a look first at the glossary. I've broken it into 3 different sections, very easy to look at: income, expenses, and general terms. The reason I've started with income is you've got to make money before you can spend money. And we're going to take each one of those little by little, and I think you're going to find that if you can understand the what behind something, then you can understand why it happens. And that's the way we're going to approach the learning today. Physical occupancy is at the top of the list when it comes to our terms in the income section. Then we follow it with economic occupancy, gross potential rent, gross possible rent, vacancy loss, concessions, model and employee units, and bad debt and collection losses. All of those are scary terms unless you get comfortable with them, which I hope you are by the end of today. First, let's take a look at physical occupancy and economic occupancy. Physical occupancy is the actual number of apartments that is physically occupied. And everybody gets all excited when they're up in the upper 90s. But if you've happened to run a leasing special that promised all this free rent, your economic occupancy isn't anywhere near that physical occupancy amount. So a happy owner would like both of those numbers to be in the high 90s. And there are ways that you can make that happen, which we'll talk about when it comes to increasing income. Next, what makes up rent revenue? What are all those line items at the very beginning of your financial statement? Well, gross possible rent, gross potential rent. What's the difference? Potential is the best it can be. That is the total of your street or market rates for each and every floor plan at 100% occupancy, which is the highest potential that property can generate when it comes to income. Next is gross possible. Unless you're in a 100% occupied, brand new lease-up situation, chances are your actual rental rate, or rental income, doesn't match that gross potential. So the gross possible is the total number of vacants at the street rate or market rate plus the occupied units at their current lease amounts. Because more than likely there's a difference between the two, especially if they've lived with you longer than just a few months. Hopefully you've bumped up those rental rates for the street and market rates, so it's not going to match your current lease schedule. Next, we've got vacancy loss, which I always think of as a sad item. You want this amount, of course, to be as little as it can be. And that means that you've got to take a look at how many days each and every vacant is actually vacant. Any money that you're not making is costing you money. And taking a look at your vacancies that are the hardest to lease and really concentrating on getting those filled as quickly as you can definitely impacts your bottom line. Then we've got concessions. To me, this is just wrong, plain wrong. We're in the business so people can pay us to live there, not so that we can pay them to live there. And that's actually what a concession is. You're giving away something that doesn't need to be given away. Then we've got model and employee units, and they serve a very important purpose. But again, every apartment unit that's not generating income is costing you money. It decreases the value of that asset. Bad debt and collection losses. The total of uncollected rent due to resident skips or, let's say, bad checks. This is money that can really be minimized, the loss can be, if you're really screening your residents when they come in and getting on top of that collection process. Instead of waiting for the late notices to go out, give a call to everybody the day before. Now we've got, next, what makes up all the different types of income? Well, first and foremost, rent revenue. That's what we're in the business to do. Then you've got ancillary services, utility income, application fees, move-in fees, lease premiums. We've got late and NSF fees, pet fees, parking permits, storage, garage rent, laundry, vending, and then the almighty important miscellaneous income, where it seems like that's the catch-all for everything else. The important thing to do, though, when you're preparing a financial statement or really examining what your income is, break it down into as many categories as you can. That way, you can take a look at how can I increase that income or how can I decrease that loss. More information does nothing more than serve you best. Now, in the glossary, we've got a whole section on the expenses. First and foremost is your administrative and general section. Administrative and general expenses is the cost of maintaining the office. It's your internet connection, your printer expenses, all of your print material that has to do with administrative forms, not your marketing stuff. Payroll and salaries are in there, which is always a big chunk. And again, the taxes that apply to payroll should be in this section of it, not your property taxes. A lot of people, when preparing a budget, confuse those two categories. Taxes is not a catch-all phrase for everything. So you want to make sure your payroll and salary area actually details, let's say, your leasing bonuses if you pay them, or any extra things that you might do for your employees, such as an employee lunch. Everything that you do to compensate that staff that works so hard for you needs to be in the payroll and salary area. Then we've got utilities. Utilities is a big expense on most properties. And this, again, is an area that you've got to break down in order to get the most information and manage your property well. So you want water, sewage, electricity, gas. Anything that has to do with the utility management should go in this category. Not trash removal necessarily. That should really be a maintenance expense because that's one that you can manage through less dumpster emptying. A larger compactor also will decrease that expense because it doesn't have to be emptied as often. Then you've got marketing and promotion. In this section, you want to have all of your collateral marketing materials, your brochures, your newsletter, any resident parties that you've got, balloons if you put them out front, banners, signs. But again, be as detailed as you can because when it comes to marketing, a lot of people, when it comes to budgeting, they'll say, oh, well, we need more money spent on marketing. But what area? Advertising is expensive. It's best that you track what's working for you with what the results are from every marketing activity that you do invest in. Then we've got grounds. This area needs to be broken down into subcategories as well.